Hello you guys, and welcome back to Planeswalkers 101. I'm your host Octopus here, and this is the place you want to be if you want to learn everything there is to know about your favorite Magic the Gathering's hero. With OLB1 and its toxic gameplay finally dropped, I think it's time we have a look at some of the major players in this storyline, so for this week, let's start with Nahiri, a Lithomancer from the plane of Zendikar. So Nahiri is native of the plane of Zendikar, which is a dangerous and hostile world ravaged by constant natural disasters and scarred by centuries-old wars against primordial alien beings of unspeakable power. Of the many races that inhabit Zendikar, Nahiri was born amongst the nomadic tribes of the Core, a race of slender humanoid with light hair and grey to bluish skin tones. Deeply reverent of the land and its sacred sites, the Core live a simple but proud existence defined by their constant travels through dozens of sacred sites across the whole plane. They usually find their center in white mana and are versed in the magical arts of healing and protection. Their personality and ideals mesh with the typical characteristics of white mana as well, as they favor ordered and harmonious communities with strong traditions binding its members together. Nahiri is a core mystic, and she is specialized in the arts of lithomancy, or the power to manipulate, melt, and reshape rocks and metals found in the earth. Within her tribe, Nahiri and mystics like her were known as stone forgers, and they traditionally forged weapons for their warriors out of rocks and minerals found in the earth. Not much is known about her past, nor how her spark initially ignited. What we do know, however, is that her first planeswalk brought her to the dark world of Innistrad, where she first met the ancient vampire planeswalker Sorin Markov. That day, an unlikely friendship was forged between the two walkers as Sorin started to regard Nahiri as his own daughter, teaching her every secret and intricacy that he knew about the multiverse. This happened around the year minus 1500 AR, almost 6,000 years prior to the current storyline in OLB1. While traveling through the multiverse together, Sorin and Nahiri witnessed by chance the unspeakable fury and ruthless destruction of the otherworldly Eldrazi. The Eldrazi were a race of interplanar beings that once traveled from plane to plane through the Ether, feeding on the mana and life force of other planes and leaving lifeless husks in their wake as they moved from one world to the next. In that particular situation, the two walkers barely managed to escape with their lives, and soon after they met with an old friend of Sorin's, the Elder Spirit Dragon Planeswalker, Ugin. Although the three had very different reasons driving their actions, they all agreed to join forces together to stop the Eldrazi's advance for the sake of the multiverse. However, because killing the three Eldrazi Titans was out of the question, the three opted for a more provisional solution to their problem. The plan was simple. They would have forced the three monsters into physical form by luring them onto a designated plane. Then, they would have used Ugin's ancient magic and their combined power to bind the three titans on that plane for millennia while looking for a more permanent solution. Although the chosen plane would most likely not survive this process, the stakes were way too high, so the three walkers agreed to sacrifice one world for the sake of many. They searched for a plane with lush ecosystems and uniquely dynamic mana, which would have constituted the most powerful lure for the Eldrazi's insatiable hunger. In the end, however, in spite of Nahiri's protests, they could not find a single more suitable world than that of Zendikar. Over a period of 40 years, the three planeswalkers prepared to execute Ugin's plan to perfection. Nahiri forged a massive network of stones known as Hedrons, powered by Zendikar's ley lines encoded in draconic runes. The power of the Hedrons then would form the bars of a plane-wide prison, forever preventing the Eldrazi from leaving Zendikar. When everything was finally ready, Sorin lured the three titans onto the plane. Ugin used his invisible breath to fight them and his colorless magic to bind their orbs to the plane. Then, the Hedron network was activated and the imprisonment spell was completed in a subterranean chamber called the Eye of Ugin. To make sure that the seal on their spell would not be broken, the three placed a mystical lock upon it, whereby the eye could only be reactivated through the combined presence of three Planeswalker sparks and the colorless power of the Ghostfire, also known as Breath of Ugin. The trap worked beautifully. The three Eldrazi titans, Emrakul, Kozilek, and Ulamog, manifested in their physical form, were confined by the Hedron's magic and sank into harmless dormancy. Their mission completed, the trio disbanded. Sorin and Ugin left, and Nahiri found herself staring at the barren wastelands she once knew as her flourishing homeplane of Zendikar. For a very long time after the binding of the Eldrazi, Nahiri lived happily and in peace amongst her people. They rebuilt what had been destroyed, and she took it upon herself to guard Zendikar from new intruders. Most notably amongst them was the infamous Ob Nixilis, whom Nahiri neutralized before he could do much damage. After centuries of relative peace, Nahiri eventually got tired of life, so she taught her pupils to tend to the Edron network, and she retired into a sort of meditation slumber. Centuries passed, and her teachings and testimony about the Eldrazi got twisted and lost through the folds of time. Emrakul, Ulamog, and Kozilek became the revered gods of the core, and the slumbering Nahiri was worshipped as the prophet of Kozilek. Eventually, the vampires of Zendikar built a shrine on the nexus of the Hedron network, and the mystical prism binding the Eldrazi became somewhat unstable, causing brute lineages of the three titans to spill over the plane once more. Nahiri immediately awoke from her dormancy and called upon Sorin and Ugin for help in repelling this new threat. However, neither Sorin nor Ugin paid heed to her call. Left alone to face the reawoken Eldrazi, Nahiri had to employ a tremendous and costly effort to single-handedly repel the Eldrazi and seal away the creatures again. Then, confused by the fact that her mentor hadn't show up when she needed him the most, Nahiri traveled to Innistrad to confront Sorin. The vampire explained that her distress call had most likely been absorbed by the huge silver monolith known as Hellvault, and that for this reason it couldn't possibly be aware of the situation of Zendikar. However, not satisfied with his motivations, Nahiri blamed Sorin for having betrayed her and attacked him. The two fought harshly, but in the end it was the ancient vampire who came out victorious. He then imprisoned Nahiri in the Hellvault, where she remained for a very long time. But it was only a matter of time before a new threat loomed on the horizon, and 6,000 years after they had been originally imprisoned, the Eldrazi finally managed to break free from their jail. Recognizing that the fate of the entire multiverse was at stake, Sorin decided to act fast and track down Ugin and Tarkir, but the dragon, unaware of the situation between Sorin and Nahiri, urged the vampire to find the Lithomancer as they would need her help as well. Reluctantly and annoyed by Ugin's words, Sorin headed back to Innistrad, but what he found was far from what he had expected. Someone, a haunted necromancer from a distant world to be precise, had shattered the Hellvault in order to kill a demonic master who was imprisoned therein. Unknown to this traveler, however, she had also freed Nahiri, who had remained imprisoned in the Hellvault for 1,000 years and was now thirsting for vengeance. As soon as the Hellvault was shattered, Nahiri fled back to Zendikar to assess the situation. What she found was a wasted plain swarmed by Eldrazi horrors where entire continents had been wiped out by their fury. Enraged and livid for what she had seen, she swore vengeance against Sorin, vowing to make Innistrad bleed in the same way Zendikar had suffered. She walked back to Innistrad and launched a brutal offensive on Markov Manor, crushing it under the power of her lithomancy and imprisoning its vampires in a state of endless agony within its walls. Blinded by rage and hatred then, she created weirdly shaped stone artifacts known as cryptolites that she scattered across Innistrad's surface. Then, she used these stones to channel Innistrad's leyline's energy and summon Emrakul to lay waste to Innistrad just as she had done to Zendikar before it. As central point for her summoning, Nahiri had Giza and her ghouls built a Drown Yard temple for her. Soon after, Emrakul emerged from the Blind Eternities and began consuming Innistrad and its denizens. Thinking the plane beyond recovery, Sorin summoned Olivia Volderan and had her legions of vampires attack Nahiri directly. The Lithomancer, however, set a trap for them within the ruins of Markov Manor, where she patiently waited alongside her army of cultists and Eldrazi abominations. During the fight that ensued, Nahiri was severely wounded but managed to defeat Sorin in battle and encase him within an inescapable shell made of pure rock. Her thirst for vengeance finally sated, she left Innistrad to regain her strength. Sometime after this, Nahiri was lured to Ravnica by the interplanar beacon and immediately became trapped there due to Bolas's use of the legendary artifact known as the Immortal Sun. The mythical conflict that ensued saw a coalition made of the trapped Planeswalkers, the Ravnican forces, and a group of heroes known as Gatewatch facing off Nicol Bolas's Dread Horde of Eternals for the salvation of the entire multiverse. In the final stages of the war, Sorin and Nahiri met on the same side of the battlefield. Oh, and if you're asking how did Sorin get out of his stone prison, trust me, you don't want to know. So even though they met as allies against Bolas on the battlefield, the hatred and contempt for each other was so strong that not even a multiversal threat could reconcile them. Ignoring the battle that was raging around them, the two walkers pounced on each other and fought in single combat. This time, however, none of them could triumph on the other, and they eventually had to come to a temporary truce as the things around them were spiraling out of control. Eventually, the coalition forces managed to defeat Bolas and win the War of the Spark, and both Sorin and Nahiri decided to remain on Ravnica to help the Gatewatch tying up loose ends. And while we have no clear information about it, I think we can safely assume that they resumed their feud right after the war. An unspecified amount of time later, Nahiri went back to Zendikar and started her quest for the Lithoform core. The core was an equally powerful and dangerous gemstone which Nahiri thought could be used to heal the plane of Zendikar and mend its wounds to restore it to its pre-Eldrazi splendor. Somewhat helped by Jace Beleren, Nahiri managed to find the core, but before she could use it, she was attacked by the Zendikari elven planeswalker Nissa Ravane, who believed the core to be more detrimental than beneficial to Zendikar's plants and wildlife. Eventually, Jace used his mind control magic to betray Nahiri, and Nissa came into possession of the core. When Nahiri regained control of her mind, she found out that Nissa had actually used the power of the Lithoform core to heal the damage done by the Eldrazi and restore Zendikar's wild nature. Because of this, the artifact was now dull and lifeless, and Nahiri couldn't possibly use it to meddle with Zendikar's natural disasters to try to stop them as she had originally planned. Accepting her defeat, Nahiri planeswalked away and swore yet another revenge, this time against Jace to punish his betrayal. Sometime later, at the behest of the same Jace Beleren that had tricked her, Nahiri temporarily agreed on setting aside their differences and joined an alliance of planeswalkers on Dominaria with the aim of repelling the Phyrexian threat to the multiverse. The newly founded coalition of planeswalkers resolved to launch an offensive against Elesh Norn's new Phyrexia by pursuing them to their own plane and fighting them on their own turf. However, it became clear soon enough how much the coalition had underestimated the new Phyrexia, who had managed to build a protective shield to meddle with any planeswalk directed towards the plane. The 10 members of the strike team were separated and landed scattered on Norn's plane with no clear indications of where they were or how to reach the predetermined rendezvous points. Upon arrival, Nahiri was forced into single combat against a local Phyrexian to protect an unconscious Kaito Shizuki and the unstable Wanderer. She eventually slain the octopoid monster, but not without sustaining a small wound, which however was enough to infect the Lithomancer with Phyresis. Okay, at this point, it's worth to stop for a few seconds and understand what Phyresis is and what's the point of getting infected by it. So Phyrexia is a viral civilization that reproduced by infecting other living beings and turning them into brand new Phyrexians through a process called completion. Completion is initiated via infecting the victim with a substance called glistering oil, which prompts biological and personality shifts in the subject's body and mind, leading them to crave the splendor and perfection of Phyrexia. The infection triggered by the oil is what we call Phyresis. Once the victim's mind has been taken, they voluntarily submit to the last step of completion, which is surgery. There, their bodies are augmented through mechanical installations and monstrous modifications to achieve a form of twisted perfection. infection. Those who survive this unspeakable suffering become blessed by the glory of Phyrexia, or completed. In addition to that, a new module developed by the Blue Praetor Jingitaxias has recently made possible what was once unthinkable: the completion of Planeswalkers. Okay, so Phyrexia is irreversible, and those infected by it are inevitably doomed to turn into Phyrexian monsters, right? Almost. Because a Mirren woman named Melira has actually proved to be immune to Phyrexia or any other form of contagion by the oil. Now, Melira also happens to be an healer, and apparently she can transfer her traits to other people, not necessarily making them immune, but by healing them from an ongoing infection. Pretty convenient, right? Well, Nahiri does meet Melira in the storyline upon their arrival at the Mirren camp, but as the woman offers to heal Nahiri, the proud Planeswalkers declines. That is because the healing process, although effective, takes a huge toll on the infected, who then needs days to recover their strength. In this particular moment of the story, Nahiri feels like the situation is of the utmost urgency and they cannot afford to not have her in the upcoming fight for the salvation of the multiverse. So, with a fraction of the strike team from Dominaria reunited and also joined by Koth, who is the leader of the Mirror Resistance, the group presses forward to the Seed Core, which is a location deep down below the glorious facade found on the surface. The Seed Core also happens to be the incubation chamber for the ultimate New Phyrexian's weapon against the multiverse, the Realm Breaker. The Realm Breaker is a very special, twisted form of the World Tree from Kaldheim. Its ability to forcibly merge worlds has granted it the name of Invasion Tree, because the new mother of the machines, Elesh Norn, plans to use its branches, known as Omen Paths, as bridges to swarm countless other worlds across the multiverse and turn them through completion. The Realm Breaker itself defies the rules of nature. It is a cosmic impossibility even for the multiverse, and its growth should have entailed the destruction of New Phyrexia itself. And yet, the Realm Breaker did grow, and the plane of New Phyrexia survived with it. He was staring at something in the distance, stepping towards the bridge with eyes wide and cheeks gone pale. Kaya turned and beheld the Phyrexian word tree, the Realm Breaker. It was clear that Elesh Norn had cultivated, nurtured, and corrupted it. Long, white oblongs hung in the air near the highest branches of the impossible tree, fading partially into the distorted distance as they reached for the blind eternities. "Invasion ships," said Koth grimly. "They're almost ready." "This is a perversion of Kaldheim's very soul," said Tyver. "I knew this was foul, but this is beyond imagining." The reason why the strike team would want to dive so deep into New Phyrexia is simple. They hope to detonate the filigree Silex to blow up the Realm Breaker and sever its connections to the multiverse forever. On their way down through the 9 spheres of New Phyrexia, the strike team ran into Rashka, who was engaged in last-ditch battle within the walls of the Sheoldred's Colosseum. Eventually, however, they found out that the Golgari Guild leader had already been heavily wounded and infected with Phyrexia. Recognizing she had already been lost, the strike team left her behind and continued their descent. Too late to save her lover, and surrounded by a horde of Phyrexians, Jace decided to remain behind with her and create a mental illusion that would dilute the last seconds of their lives to relive some of their best moments together within Rashka's mind. Too bad for Jace, however, Rashka revealed she had already been completed and her true aim was to lure the former companions to the Colosseum to infect them as well. Before Jace could react to this news, the Gorbans stabbed him with their serpentine scorpion tail, infecting him as well. The others, in the meantime, tried their best to escape but were soon overwhelmed by legions of Phyrexians. In this very moment, with her fate already sealed by the infection running through her veins, Nahiri decides to sacrifice herself for the greater good. With a mighty blast filled with ancient power, she blows up the Colosseum entirely, making the ground below it collapse on itself and drop on the underlying layer of the fair basilica. The core planeswalker from Zendikar does not survive the tremendous explosion, but unfortunately, this was not the end for her. Indeed, one does not need to be alive to be completed, and Nahiri's corpse was subsequently retrieved and completed by the mother of the machines herself. The spikes that were jutting out of her back and shoulders are now more clearly visible. Her hands and forearms are gone and substituted from the elbow down with deadly metal blades. Grotesque cracks run through the metallic skin of her body. Finally, her eyes have lost any hint of humanity and they now glow with the same molten-like, terrible, burning heat. In the last moments of OLB1's storyline, we see Tyver, Kaito, and Kaya being joined in the seed core by Elesh Norn and her new completed puppets Nahiri, Nissa, Jace, and Tamiyo.
"Welcome, weary travelers, to Phyrexia,"
said Elesh Norn.
"We offer you no threat. We offer you only harmony and peace. We are one. All will be one. Why resist? Your friends are already here. You too can be one, only healed, and all will be over quickly."
"Go to hell," replied Kaya.
"Such hostility. It seems we have no way to an accord then. If you would be our enemies, then, very well, enemies it is."
With that, Elesh Norn raised her hand, clicking her perfect claws together, and the invasion began. There you go, guys. This was all you need to know about Nahiri's complete storyline. Now, of course, let me throw this back to you. What do you think will happen moving forward? Do you think Moat Walkers will be completed in the next set, or will they manage to actually defeat Norn without any more losses? I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, if you did, make sure to let us know by leaving a like and a comment, subscribe to the channel, and spread the word. We really appreciate you sticking with us until the very end, and once again, thank you all so much for watching. My name is Octopus, and I will see you in the next one.